Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. On this edition, we're going to be going over a crazy story that normally I wouldn't cover this kind of story, but there's a lot of good lessons learned in this story. And I think in the end, the guy in this story handled the situation very well. So I think this story will resonate with a lot of men out there and really have some good lessons learned and some good takeaways. So let's get into it. And you can see from the title here before I jump forward, my fiancée had her naked sister proposition me as a loyalty test. So let's get into it. I wanted to share the story that led to the breakup of the engagement to my fiancée. Amy and I met during Thanksgiving break of 2020. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and I was at a popular bar with several of my friends. We began talking with a group of 5 girls, which included Amy and her sister Kendra. It was around 10 p.m., and the girls were all pretty drunk. Right there is a huge red flag. I have a philosophy: never get involved with any woman who gets inebriated, who gets drunk, or who uses and abuses substances. You know, you may find one that is a great girl and turns out to be a real gem, but from my experience and from what I've witnessed just growing up and just witnessing for myself, normally these women are trouble and you should avoid them like the plague. But you'll see this guy doesn't. My friends and I are all responsible guys. So you can see this guy and his, posse of friends are good men, probably very responsible in their lives, in their jobs. They probably all have good jobs and work hard and follow the rules, follow the laws. They are social drinkers, and each of us drove, so we each nursed a single drink the entire night, along with a glass of water and several appetizers. So they were in fine shape. Now, let's compare that to the woman and her friends. Amy zeroed in on me, and we started talking. She never had another drink of alcohol that night. However, her friends and sister continued drinking and got plastered. So she was probably on her best behavior, this Amy, because she wanted to impress this guy. The bar was closing early at 12 o'clock because of C, and we know what that was, what happened back in 2020. Amy and I exchanged numbers, and Amy and the girls left, all Ubered home, and my friends and I left separately. The Sunday after Thanksgiving, Amy sent me a text stating that she enjoyed talking to me and was looking forward to speaking to me again. She went on to say she had Monday and Tuesday off. I called her and we arranged a date for Monday evening at a local bar/restaurant. We drove separately and met at the restaurant. We had a nice dinner and talked the entire night. At the end of the night, I leaned in and gave her a long kiss, and she responded with the same. She then invited me to her apartment for dinner the following night, and I accepted. When I arrived, she prepared a nice dinner, and I brought a bottle of good white wine to go with the chicken. We enjoyed dinner, and while we were cleaning up, we bumped into each other and started kissing again. Amy is a beautiful woman with a smoking hot body. So of course, that beauty and that beautiful body and just the pheromones had this guy hooked pretty quickly. We quickly moved to the bedroom and sparks flew, and flew, and flew, and flew. Needless to say, it was a great night. From that point forward, we were going strong as a couple. Amy and I both had good jobs, and I was rising in my company. The biggest difference between us was our friends, and that was a big difference, as you're going to find out here as time goes on. While my friends were all responsible, classy guys, Amy's friends and her sister Kendra were definite party girls and very irresponsible. You know, you got to really pay attention to a woman's family and to her circle of friends, because inevitably those people will influence her either for the good or, in this case, for the bad. So always have your eyes peeled for who she's hanging out with and what her family is like. After Amy and I became an item, she stopped going out with them at night, as she knew I did not like their drinking and the things they were doing in addition to drinking. And he has here in parentheses, hooking up. So he didn't like that, and he didn't want her to do that, but did he understand that she came from that? So she was not only drinking, I'm sure she was also hooking up along with all of them. But it doesn't say whether he put two and two together here, and obviously at this stage he wasn't thinking about this because he was so enamored with her. I knew her sister and friends resented me and the monogamous relationship Amy and I had, but they kept it to themselves and were always very cordial around me. Now that's another thing. You know, if you've got a group of single women, party girls here, and now you've had one that kind of broke off, she found a good guy, she's now monogamous, she stopped drinking, she stopped partying, they are going to resent her. Maybe not overtly, but they're going to look to try to kind of trip her up somewhere to bring her back into the fold. Because to them, they see now she's gone on with her life. She's found a good man, she's settling down, and we're still a pack of jackals. Just wild women out there, you know, getting screwed by everyone and drinking heavily. And they probably deep down don't like that, and they are jealous of her. That being said, everything in our relationship was going great, and after 8 months of dating, I asked Amy to marry me. What a huge mistake, man. What a huge mistake. You don't know this woman. 8 months, you're still in the honeymoon phase. You've got to wait years before you make that decision. And I'm very much against marriage for men. You know, unless it's something that you got into at a relatively early age and both of you had nothing and you built a life together, that's a different story here. But this guy is just rushing into it. You know, after 8 months of just getting that reliable pussy on a daily basis, I'm sure, you know, he jumps into asking this woman to marry him. Huge mistake. She said yes, and I placed the $7,000 engagement ring, the equivalent to 2 months' pay, on her finger that I had purchased. She cried with joy, and our relationship continued on strong. That is until that fateful day, as I now refer to it. And we're going to find out what that fateful day is. We were just shy of our 10-month anniversary, and it was Kendra, now that's the sister. It was her 27th birthday. Amy is 24 and I am 25. So this is an older sister, and I must say an older, irresponsible sister. Amy said she and Kendra were going to take the afternoon off, go out to lunch, and then out shopping. I thought that sounded great, and Amy said she would be preparing a nice dinner for me at her apartment that night. Sounds like a, normal birthday celebration. It was about 4 p.m. and I was getting ready to leave the office when Amy phoned me and asked if I could stop by Ken's house, Ken now, and pick up a package she mistakenly left in her sister's car. Ken is Kendra's boyfriend, and they have been together for about 6 months at this point. He is a terrific guy, and he and I get along well. My only issue with Ken is that he allows Kendra to walk all over him as she continues her wild party girl ways. He's a classic nice guy, and Kendra really has him pee-whipped. I arrive at Ken's house and knock on the door. No one answered, so I continued knocking. Then, now listen to this. Now this is just so insane, crazy, but it may not surprise anyone out there. Then the door opens and Kendra, now this is the sister, is standing there with a towel wrapped around her. She said, "I've been waiting for you, Bobby," and that's his name. And with that, she drops the towel and is standing in front of me completely naked. For a moment, I was in a daze and said nothing, and then said, "What is going on here? You're drunk. Get some clothes on, Kendra." Kendra then said, "Not until you give it to me, big boy." With that, I wasn't sure what to do, so I sprinted to my car, and Kendra slammed the front door shut. I drove out of the driveway and down the street to a pharmacy parking lot where I started calling Amy. So this guy was just shell-shocked. I mean, he was in shock, so he just got the hell out of there, which was probably a smart thing to do, as you're going to find out. Amy wasn't answering, so I texted her and she didn't respond. I then called Ken and caught him on his way home. I told him what happened and he drove over to meet me at the pharmacy before heading home. Ken arrived and I again told him what happened and that I could not get a hold of Amy. Like me, he was totally shocked and dumbfounded. He requested the both of us go to the house together to see what was going on. We got to the house and saw Kendra's car in the driveway. So that's not a good thing, here, because Bobby here, he said when he went to the door, this Kendra was drunk. So obviously she very likely drove drunk to this Ken's house. Not a good thing. Definitely not a good thing. We entered through the glass sliding door on the side of the house. On the kitchen counter, we found 2 empty bottles of champagne and a partially eaten box of chocolate strawberries. So these women were partying hard that afternoon. We walked through the living room and kitchen, and the house was silent. So where are these women? We walked past the guest bedroom, and there was Amy asleep on the bed with her bra lying beside her. We then walked to the master bedroom, and there was Kendra completely naked on top of the bedspread and snoring loudly. Ken and I walked back into the kitchen and started asking ourselves, what the F is going on here? We concluded that they went out drinking and came back to his house and continued getting wasted. Well, they obviously did that. And we're likely sleeping one off here. We then heard a text come through on a cell phone somewhere in the living room. Ken walked over and saw the phone and said, "This must be Amy's phone because it's not Kendra's." I said it was, and Ken handed it to me. Now, listen to this, folks. So it's not only, this girl had her sister try to proposition this guy, but you're also going to find out that she's doing some very terrible things here with her phone. I started reading the text that came through from a guy named Phil and saw a string of texts between he and Amy starting at 2:45 p.m. The last one from him said, "Your breasts are very beautiful. I want you now. Where are you?" I then went back and saw that Amy had sent this guy a photo of her bare breasts about 45 minutes prior, along with a text stating, "This is what you can expect if we ever get together." Now, can you imagine that? Just unbelievable. I was shocked and became angry. I asked Ken to come outside with me and I explained what I just saw and read. He was shocked. I told him based on this and the weird episode with Kendra, I'd be breaking up with Amy. Well, that goes without saying. I then told him I need to get that ring off of her finger while she's sleeping, as I knew she would not likely surrender it peacefully. So remember now, he just put a $7,000 engagement ring on her finger a couple months ago. We then crept back into the house and I entered the guest bedroom. Amy was out cold and she too was now snoring. So these are 2 classy girls here, man. She had her left hand resting on its side so I could get my thumb and index finger on the ring without touching her skin. I then slid the ring up her finger and removed it. She flinched a couple of times and I thought she would wake up, but she didn't. So he got lucky there. He got that $7,000 ring back in his possession. Ken then said he wanted to get a hold of Kendra's phone because he suspected if Amy was sending nudes to someone, then Kendra likely had done so as well. Kendra had her phone on the nightstand beside Ken's bed. He walked in and retrieved the phone and brought it out to the kitchen. Sure enough, Kendra was sending full body nudes, including full vulva shots to a guy named Anthony, and had actually set up a date with him to hook up. Again, what a classy woman here. We took photos with our phone cameras of all the incriminating text. We next devised a plan to confront the sisters, presenting them with the incriminating evidence and breaking up with both of them. Ken had a security system with cameras, so he moved 2 of the cameras to the living room and turned them on to record our conversations so the sisters could not twist the story. That was a smart thing to do. So he's going to take videos of them. Ken went to wake Kendra, and I went to wake Amy. When Amy woke, she started immediately apologizing, saying how sorry she was for getting drunk and asking if I was mad at her. I said we need to talk and told her to come out to the living room. Ken and Kendra then came into the room. They were both silent, with Kendra having a concerned look on her face. I started off by saying, can you explain to us what happened here? Amy said that she and Kendra Ubered over to a popular restaurant on the river. They arrived at 11:30 a.m. and didn't leave until 3 p.m. So how much drinking do you think they did in 3.5 hours? These 2 girls with their track record. And then remember now, they came back to his house and had 2 bottles of champagne. That's 8 glasses, 4 apiece. That's a lot. She said they each had 4 drinks at the restaurant. I then asked, how did you get back here? Kendra spoke up and said we Ubered back. So that's good. I said before that they drove, but it sounds like they drove to his house. They got an Uber, went to the restaurant, and then Ubered back. So at least they were responsible there and didn't drive. Ken then said, when you got back here, you drank 2 additional bottles of champagne, and Kendra said yes. I then asked Kendra why she propositioned me at the door. Amy spoke up and said, that was my idea. I'm sorry, Robbie. I wanted to test your faithfulness. I said, what the F? You don't do something like this. Only a slut would do such a thing. You both disgust me. I am so pissed right now, I can't see straight. With this, Amy started crying and begging for forgiveness, telling me how much she loved me. Very typical response, as we all know. Ken then spoke up and just came out and said, Kendra, we're done. Our relationship is over. She started crying and begging, saying that she was drunk and she would never do something like that again. Ken said, did you do this for Anthony? Kendra asked what he was talking about, and he pulled out his phone and showed her pictures of the nude photos and text she was sending Anthony. She was busted. She again started apologizing, blaming it on being drunk. See, oftentimes women will do that. They'll do these slutty things, they'll cheat, they'll do all this kind of stuff, and then they'll say, oh, I was just drunk. You know, it's the alcohol. Blame it on the alcohol. No, don't blame it on the alcohol. They knew exactly what they were doing. She then said they were just 2 older married guys she and Amy met at the restaurant. I then spoke up and said, you mean Anthony and Phil? The guys you and Amy sent nudes to were just 2 older married guys you met at a bar this afternoon? You send nudes to complete strangers after having a few drinks? Really classy women. Amy cried and shouted, it was just a big mistake. We just wanted to tease them. Now, can you imagine that? 2 women teasing 2 older guys like that by sending them nudes? Again, what kind of women are they? Good Lord. He didn't respond, which I don't blame him for not responding. Amy continued crying and apologizing, but I looked at her and said, our engagement is off. I let her know I had removed her ring, which she didn't realize. She was so drunk, I'm sure, that she didn't even realize that the ring was off. Obviously, she didn't. And that we were through. Both Amy and Kendra continued crying, and Ken said, "You both need to leave my home. I will drive you." Kendra said, "We're not going anywhere," started using profanity, calling us mother effing bastards for invading their privacy. Amy started screaming at Kendra, saying, "Shut up, Kendra. We effed up. It's our fault. It's my fault," and again apologizing and begging me to forgive her. Now, unlike most women, the good thing here about this Amy, at least she's owning up to the fact that she effed up. It was her fault. She's not trying to pass blame, whereas this Kendra was trying to, of course, pass blame, saying, "Hey, you're invading my privacy. Even though I sent all these nudes, it's none of your business," type of thing. Eventually, they both settled down, and we went out to Ken's car, and we drove them both home. On the drive, Kendra was silent and looking out the window, but Amy was crying and remorseful, begging me for another chance. I told her that was not going to happen and that I never wanted to see her again for what she had done, as all trust had been broken. Absolutely. I mean, you're not even married to this woman. You're just engaged, so she should be on her best behavior. And she's sending nudes to some old guy that she just met at a bar. I mean, this woman is obviously not marriage material. She's obviously not committed relationship material. She's basically hookup material at best. And then I'd be very cautious with women like this Amy and Kendra. We arrived at Kendra's apartment. She jumped out of the car and slammed the door super hard without saying a word and ran into her apartment. Amy continued crying, and we got to her place. She refused to get out, saying, "I couldn't dump her like this." I let her rant on for several minutes, but then told her that we had video recordings of everything she and Kendra said at Ken's house, along with photos of the nude text. I told her there was nothing she could do to repair what happened, and the best thing we could do now was to split amicably. She continued sobbing and begging, but I told her there was no way and kept instructing her to get out of the car. I exited the car, opened her door, and extended my hand, and she got out of the car, holding my hand, and we walked to her door. There she embraced me and said, "I'm not going to ever let you go. We will be together." With that, I gave her a long hug to settle her down, which was probably a good thing there. I mean, of course, you don't have any, fondness to her now after what she did. But I think giving her that hug there at least kind of settled her down so she wasn't going bonkers and belligerent and trying to get back in the car. She then took out her key, opened the door, and went into the house and begged me to come in. I just said no, turned, and walked away. That's the best way to handle it. Definitely the best way to handle it. Ken and I headed back to his place, and I drove Kendra's car to her apartment with Ken following in his vehicle. I went to the door and texted Kendra that I parked her car out front and had her keys. I knocked on the door. She reached out, not showing her face, grabbed the keys, and slammed the door in my face. Again, this Kendra is a classy woman, man. You can see that. Ken and I then went out to a restaurant to grab a bite to eat and a beer and relived this unbelievable day. While we were both saddened and depressed, we were also thankful we found out about what these sisters were like before going too far with them. We also were thankful we each had each other as friends to get through this ordeal with these ladies. Ken had quickly become RP'd, and we know what that means. It's been 6 months, and Amy still texts me a couple of times a week begging for forgiveness and asking for another chance. See, after this happened, I'm sure she sobered up really quickly and said, "Man, I blew it. I had a nice guy. We were marching towards the altar. My life could be completely different now. I could be married. I could be happily married. I could be settled. I could be on the way to having kids and a family. And now I'm back into this terrible, degenerative lifestyle that I was in before I met this Robbie." because I'm sure she's right back into the drinking and the hooking up and all the things she was doing before she met him. I just ignore her and haven't spoken or seen her since that fateful day. I recently started dating a couple of women, but nothing serious at this point. I eventually want to get married and have a couple of kids, but for right now, I'm still having PTSD about the end of my relationship to Amy. Ken is also back on the market, but with a totally different perspective on how to handle women. One thing for sure, we are done with those sisters from hell. The end. So it's a really good story with some good lessons here. So let's go through some of the lessons learned here quickly before we sum up. Number one, women who are heavy drinkers and or drug users should and must, I don't even say should, I say must be avoided. They are nothing but trouble. You can't fix them. They've got to fix themselves. So don't get involved with them. Watch out who your woman's friends are and who she's hanging out with. And I'll add to that, watch out who her family is as well. Because the friends and family eventually at some point will influence her, whether good or in many cases bad. In this case with this Amy, her influences were Kendra and her friends, and they had a very negative influence on her. Once your partner is dishonest, you can never trust them again. And really without trust, there is no relationship, so you should break it off. Once someone cheats, it's over. I've said this on many videos. There is no reconciliation once infidelity has occurred, whether it's a girlfriend, boyfriend, whether it's a fiancé, whether it's a husband and wife. There is no reconciling. Cut it off, move on, even if it costs you half of your fortune. It's much better to be a happy person in life without, a burden of an unhappy relationship and a cheating wife than it is to be burdened with that. You want to go on, you want to live life as a happy person. You don't want to be burdened with, your mind constantly thinking about what's she doing and you can't trust her and, it's just a bad situation. So cut it off if you ever find out that your spouse, your girlfriend has cheated. And the final statement here, it is better to be alone than to be saddled with a terrible partner. Remember, gentlemen, you are the prize. Don't think of the woman as the prize. Think of yourself as the prize. There are a lot of women out there that you could get, especially if you're a working man, a guy who's got his shit together. You're going to be very attractive to a lot of women. So don't sell yourself short and thinking, oh my God, if I lose this woman, I'm going to be screwed. This is my chance at happiness. No, there are a lot of women out there. You just got to put some effort into going out and meeting them. So that's it for this week's video. If you liked it, please, hit the like button, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you got any comments to share about this story, please put them in the comments section if you've had a similar situation or, what your thoughts are on how these guys handled the situation. And I thank you for watching and listening to this week's video, and I'll see you on